We're going to be talking about appliquing today, and I'm going to start off talking about machine applique. Whenever you work on any applique, you cut out your background piece that you're going to be applying the applique to, and because fabric frays and it also draws up some whenever you are stitching on it, to compensate for that, you cut your background piece larger. So after I'm finished, I'm going to cut this down to 6.5 so that it's ready to sew into the block that we're making. So I cut this at 7.5. I've got it an inch larger than the size that I actually want it to finish at. So I also went and I lightly pressed in. I just folded it in half and just pressed it both directions to get where the placement was for the heart on here. So that way I would have the markings in order to line up the heart. If you're going to put your piece diagonally like it is in the picture, then you would also want to fold it in half diagonally and press it in both directions on that so that you have the crosswise markings to help use to line up your heart. So whenever you are working with applique pieces, you need to read the directions to see, have they already reversed the templates and the diagram that you have? Has it been reversed? Now the heart, that one's not going to be one to have to worry about because it's going to be the same on both sides. But on some pieces, say if you did a bird and you want the bird facing one direction, then you need to make sure you reversed it, or else it's going to be facing the other direction. As a general rule of thumb, if you're working from the bottom of the fabric, like with freezer paper, fusible applique, you're going to have to reverse the pattern. Just read the directions to see if they've already done that and included that in what they gave you. So to trace the design, when you have your design, you can tape it up on a window on a sunny day. If it's only printed on one side, you can flip it whichever way you need to so that you're looking at what side you need to trace so it's going in the right direction for you. If it's got something printed on the back side and you can't tape it up and get a good picture of that, you can take some copy paper or tracing paper or something and trace it off the way that you see it with the image up in the right direction, and you can go back over that with like a heavy marker or something, and then you can put that up in the window, or you can flip it over on the back side and trace that off again if you need to get it darker. You can use a light box, but either one of those methods would work. And depending on how dark it is, you may even be able to just lay it down on the counter and be able to just go through that to see. So you trace the pieces of the applique design directly from your pattern. Sometimes they'll have a layout to where it'll show everything how it's going to be going, and then they'll go and they'll blow it apart so you can see each piece individually. This is one I've done. So when you're working with it, you can also stack it like this. You know it's going to be on top. You've got a square in the center of a star. So you could applique that to the star, and then you applique that whole piece to the background of the sheep. The legs and the face are all tucked underneath it because this comes up over it. So kind of look and see, because your directions may have like a little piece coming in for like the rest of that applique template piece being shoved up under there, and usually it's indicated with dashed lines so you know that it's underneath it. But this is one that was done by machine, so I don't know if you can see the stitches on this one. I used a buttonhole stitch on this one, and use matching thread on that. So you'd make your templates and everything, trace all that out, and then I cut my piece of the fabric that I'm going to put the heart on. I cut it larger than what the heart template is. So you can see that that's much larger. So I've had to add enough for seam allowances because that's not in this. This is at the actual shape. So I traced off that template. Since I had a template, I traced it off onto some Heat'n Bond Lite. And then I've got my outside line here, and this is written on the paper side. And you're going to cut it out larger than where your lines are. That, and also working with a template like this, you can cut out the center of this, just kind of fold it in half. And I especially do this on larger pieces. You're probably not going to need all of the fusible all the way around it. So you can cut it out around the edge here, leaving you about a ½ inch or so all the way around. And it's just going to have your applique to have a softer hand to it so that it's not as stiff. Because where you really want it to adhere is going to be on the outside edges. You're not going to be so worried about what's on the inside. So just cut into that, and then you've got a shape like this. But you need to cut that out before you put it on your fabric. So I'm going to look at my fabric here. On this one I've got tulips. I want them up at the top, and I want my zigzag that's running in the pattern going up and down. So on the back side, I'm going to line this up with where I can see that the zigzags there on the deal, kind of like decide where I want that to show up on my heart. Line that up, and then you're going to adhere that to the back side the way that your manufacturer instructions say to do. And then after it cools, you can go and trim it down to the actual cutting line. When you're working with the fusible, you're going to trim it down to the cutting line that you had on your shape. So it's an actual size that needs to be finished. Okay, so I've ironed the Heat'n Bond Lite to the wrong side of the fabric. You leave the paper on until you're ready to apply it to your background. And so I'm ready to apply it to my background. And I also folded this in half and kind of little finger pressed it so I could find where it was going to match it up on my background piece. And you know that the V and the point is going to be where it's going to be going the other direction. So take off your paper. And then line it up where you want it. And then following the manufacturer's directions, press that in place. Okay, so I've got it all pressed in place now, so now would be the time that I would start stitching. I usually start off over at the side. I do not start in the center here. You could start here, but I usually like to go ahead and just turn it around because I like to use the buttonhole stitch. And when that comes in, because my machine takes 2 steps forward, it goes forward, forward, swings to the left, back to the right. So I like to catch it to where I can stop my needle here, and when it swings, go catch it up in the point of the heart. And then do the same thing whenever I'm coming around here. You just lift up your presser foot as you come and stitch around on this to get it going around on that. You can use a zigzag or a satin stitch. You can use the same color thread, match your thread. You can do contrasting thread. Just decide which way you want to go with it, what you want to use. Okay, so I've got everything ironed on, and I'm going to start stitching. I've set up my machine for a buttonhole stitch, and I changed it to where on mine I got the length at 3.0 and the width is at 2.0. So I'm going to, like I said, on my machine it stitches 2 forward and then it swings over. So I'm going to actually be stitching on the background fabric, and then when it swings over it's going to catch my applique. I went with a contrasting thread. I've put black on it, so one maybe that you would be able to see it, but you know, a lot of the older stuff I also saw that was done in black. I'm doing Civil War prints, so that's why I went ahead and went with that. So you're going to put I always put my needle down too, so that whenever you stop, you want the needle to be in your fabric so that you don't shift it around from where it's at. And I'm putting it down into the background fabric. I pulled up my bobbin thread, and I'm going to start sewing. And when I finish this, I'm going to go sew back over where I already was. You see it takes 2 forward, 1 to the left. When I get down here at the point, I'm going to slow down. So I had to go ahead and swing one over. It's back in the background fabric. That's where I stopped it, so I can pivot it to turn. And then it's going to start back up, 2 forward, because when I stopped it, that's the swing that it was at. I sometimes try to get like 3 stitches down there at the points. Don't always make it. I didn't make it this time. Just let the machine do a lot of the work. I'm just using my hands to kind of help let this turn. I also like to use an open toe foot, so there's nothing that's in the way here obstructing my view. I can see exactly what's going on there and where I'm at. That's usually something extra you have to buy. If you need to go and readjust your fabric, just make sure you stop it in the background fabric so that you can swing it around. And you usually have to slow down for the curves. Okay, this is ending almost at that point there. So I've got one there, and it's going to take one this direction and then swing. So I didn't get one in the point there. Whoops. And I sew back over where I started. It helps to hide it, and it makes it keep it from pulling out. And my machine has a fixed stitch, which is like a locking stitch, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. It takes several tiny stitches right in that one area, and then I can clip it. I'll take care of my thread here. When you go to cut your threads, don't clip it here. You're just going to take it, and I hold the thread up and take the point, the sharpness of the scissors into the thread. It'll cut the thread, and you don't have a danger of cutting into your fabric. But here we've got the applique heart here. You should be able to see the black thread on there. That's with the machine applique.